Welcome, Immigrant Nation. Another week, another new episode. As always, I'm your host, Aaron Deliosa, and this is an Immigrant's Life podcast. And every week, I want to thank you for joining us and tuning in and listening to the show. If you're new here, thank you and welcome. I hope you like what you're hearing, that you'd subscribe. Speaking of subscription, the podcast is available to listen to on any podcast platform that you listen to. You can also follow us on our social media accounts. Our handle is at An Immigrant's Life. And if you want to send an email, if you're old school that way, you can send an email at animmigrantslife@yahoo.com. Last weekend, I didn't able to bike because the weather here in Montreal has been not so bueno. But it is what it is. I hope where you are, I hope the weather is okay. I hope you're having fun. I hope you're enjoying it. If you're from the northern part of the world, I hope you're enjoying the summer. And if you're from the other side, I hope you're enjoying it anyway. Enough with the blabbering. Why don't we talk about this week's episode? Oh, before we do, I just want to give you guys a heads up because at the first minute of the episode, we're having some audio technical issue. So it could get annoying, but I promise you it will go away quickly. All right? Now, we can talk about this week's episode. In this episode, we delve into a compelling journey of our guest's resilience, cultural identity, and entrepreneurial spirit. Explore the profound lessons learned from family, the challenges of navigating multiple cultures, and the transformative power of grief into purpose. Join us as we uncover the essence of building inclusive communities and advocating for diversity and equity. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode as much as I did recording it with our guests. So let's not waste more time, shall we? Without further ado, let's get into the show. Isa, dalawa, tatlo. Today's guest is a transformational strategic leader that builds community with her sheer will and her kind heart. Everyone, please welcome Connie Mansfield.
Thank you for having me, Aaron.
Oh, it's a pleasure. I love that we connect through our mutual friend, Tay. She's awesome.
She's amazing.
She's always like hitting me up with cool people and stuff. I love her. How did you guys know each other?
Yeah, so we were actually at an event. We were at a Diwali festival and we were next to each other. She had her booth. She does readings and I do bath and body goods. And we were next to each other and it was a 3-day event. So we spent a lot of time talking to each other, kind of swapping stories, commiserating about our upbringing. And then we ended up working out that there was an all-Asian maker market that was upcoming and she wanted to participate. And so I had actually offered if she wanted to share a booth with me since I had already signed up. And so she ended up sharing a booth with me and, we spent a lot of hours together and a lot of time together. And yeah, it's been amazing. I'm so happy to have met her. She's an amazing person for sure.
Yes, Taylor is awesome. I love her to death. But before we get into other things, why don't you promote anything you'd like to promote?
Sure. So I own PDX Fresh Start, which is a bath and beauty product company. So I wanted to kind of just promote that. In particular, I have an Instagram and I also have pdxfreshstart.com where you can order it online and it ships across the world. And then I have a all Asian artist collective called Jelly Cup Collective. That was started as of January. And we have an Instagram, Jelly Cup Collective. And then also in July, that's actually the event that Taylor and I had shared booths at, is Legendary Makers Market. And it's a large all Asian maker market, the largest in Oregon. And that's going to be this summer, July 26th and through 28th in Beaverton, Oregon.
Like just all Asian?
Yes. Yeah, it's going to be amazing because so it's separated into four different districts, and they'll each kind of have their own vibe. So it's a bunch of different artists, makers, and then there's going to be a health and wellness area. There's going to be a theater diaspora is heading up the film viewing area. So Asian filmmakers and actors, actresses. The wellness area is actually going to be, I believe, indoors. There's going to be like acupuncture, ear seeding, all sorts of amazing services. And then, of course, there's food. So lots of food.
I mean, come on. The only reason people shows up is the food.
Exactly.
Art is awesome, but food's the best.
Mm-hmm.
But you focus on health and wellness. Like, what kind of products do you have?
Yeah, so I sell like shower steamers and like lip balms and bath bombs, lotions, scrubs, and they're all inspired, or a lot of them are inspired by Asian scents and kind of reminiscent of Asian childhood. And then also part of it is kind of meant to be fun and cheeky, so not so serious. So I try to have interactive products. Like I have sponges that are shaped like fruit, but you can squeeze them and bubbles come out, and like more like interactive fun products. And then also part of it is like things that you can easily slip into daily life, because I know like all of us are super busy, including myself. So like incorporating like new routines are really difficult. So just something that's easy that you can just use in the shower, things that you can use during the day, trying to make it simple to incorporate nice things into our day.
Do you make it by yourself?
I make everything myself.
Wow. Where did you learn?
Yeah, so it all started pre-pandemic. I was really obsessed with making bath bombs. My kiddos were really obsessed with bath bombs. And, I was like, I can make this. And it was like kind of like a science experiment, trying to perfect it. It's actually pretty finicky. So that was really fun to figure out. And then I think from there, I realized, not everyone takes the bath, so I was giving them out to friends and family. And so that's kind of when I got into shower steamers. And that's when I was like, oh my God, I could use this every day. Because you just stick it in the shower and it sends the steam of the shower. And like, I didn't have to do anything extra to make a shower feel fancy, So from there, I just kind of expanded into different things that were fun. And I noticed that adults really enjoy the fun too. It's not just kids. So I really enjoy hearing people's stories about using my products. I think one really a cool story about like the sponge I was talking about, they were saying that their partner was actually had a disability, and putting soap on a sponge was really difficult for them. And so having the soap already in the sponge and using it as a one-handed like application was really helpful for them. And so, those are like amazing moments that like make me really remind me of why, I do what I do to help other people. I think that's just amazing. So
That's amazing. I love that story. What message do you want your brand to send?
I think that all of us are worth it. We're worth the time, we're worth the effort to spend time on ourselves, to treat ourselves. We don't have to earn it, right? You don't have to earn, a break. You deserve it all the time, right? I think that's super important. And then I think the other part of it is just like, I have I'm trying to start a line, but I have a line of affirmation cards, and they're specific to Asian Pacific Islander. So they're like cards that you can wet and then stick on a mirror. And so they're basically, different things that I had never seen or I haven't seen Asian affirmations before. And I feel like we have a different set of nuance that, that we have to overcome in terms of like generational trauma or different things, that we are good enough, right? Like, I think that's a very common Asian API feeling of just not feeling good enough, right? And so I felt like, there's definitely a market for making our community feel at peace, and ourselves and okay with being ourselves.
Yeah, but we need this trauma to make us better, like make it to challenge us.
True. True.
But no, I'm good without trauma. When when my mom and my dad were like, they'll say something like, oh no, let's say they'll tell me like a certain way how to raise a kid or whatever. I'm like, no, that's not gonna happen.
Yeah.
And then like, I raised you, you came out okay. I'm like, no, I'm not okay. I had to work on myself,
Exactly. We had to overcome it. We had a lot of work to do.
That's one thing I heard that changed my view on things about kids. They used to say like, or they still do that, oh, kids are so resilient. That's BS. Because kids will grow up as adults that has trauma.
Yes, exactly. I completely agree with you. Yeah, I noticed like they're resilient, but it's our job to protect them from having to be that resilient, right? Like to do our best to not let them have to rely on that.
Yeah. I mean, of course, you have to teach them resilience on things, but
Yes.
not in a sense that, I don't know, like, I can think of an example, but something that like bullying. They need to learn how to deal with bullies because someday
Yeah.
mom won't be there.
Yes.
You
Exactly.
know? How many kids do you have?
2.
Have two boys?
1 boy, 1 girl.
Oh, God bless. Perfect.
I know.
Balance.
It's a balance. It makes a difference.
Oh, we have 2 boys.
Oh, nice.
I only make boys.
Yeah.
That's the plan. So let's put some background on you. What's your ethnicity?
My parents are from Taiwan. They actually were born on an island off of Taiwan. So we're Taiwanese Chinese.
But your last name is Mansfield. That's not.
Yeah, that's my married name.
Okay. What's your maiden
Chen.
name?
Chen.
Chen?
Yep.
Oh, the classic. I love that
Yes.
name because I grew up with like those names like Chen, Tan, and whatnot.
Yes.
Are you close to the culture?
I'm very close. Yes.
But growing up, were you close?
Yes.
Really?
Very, very close.
How?
So, my parents immigrated when they went to graduate school. So we immigrated to California. And, as you can imagine, as an immigrant, they clung on to, as much culture as they could feed their children, right? So I stayed very close to her culture. My mom actually is an author, a Chinese author. And so she very much valued us learning the language. And I've been in Chinese school like since I could walk, I think. She was like the principal of the Chinese school. So she would just throw me in the class. I'm just like sitting in the back of the class, like absorbing all the things. And I pretty much stayed in Chinese school like all the way through high school. It's actually kind of like if you ever watch Turning Red, like I totally bonded with my mom over like Chinese soap operas. Like that's all we watch. We just binge watch Chinese soap operas and celebrate every holiday. And she was obviously an amazing cook, and so we did a lot of that. My grandma was often around too, so we cooked a lot of bao and made dumplings. And my grandma used to have a stall that sold soybean milk and like the Chinese donuts. So we would make a ton of food, and obviously it was all off the top of their head. They don't have any recipes or anything.
They don't write down things.
Yeah. So so very deeply involved, I feel like, in my culture, but balancing that with wanting to fit into American culture too.
How did you find the balance?
I think that was really hard. Yeah. It's funny because my mom actually, what she wrote about was about raising like an ABC, like an American born Chinese kid. As an immigrant, that was her whole, that's all she wrote about. And she focused on like the humor of it. So she often told stories about me that were funny, but it was difficult, I think. I mean, she like one story she told was how she would often make like Asian food for like neighbors or teachers. And, you know, like she finds like a nice clean box to put it in, right? And then it's like a shoe box, you know? And she's like, she gives it over and they're like, what is it? You know, like they give her like the weirdest look. And she's like, well, you know, like in my culture, it's a nice clean box, you know, it's not a shoe box.
A box is a box.
A box is a box.
Was it in a Tupperware or was it in one of those like ice cream?
Yeah,
Container.
I know. Yeah, right. You reuse everything. You reuse everything multiple times.
Well, I mean, like you said, it's decent and it's clean, so why not use it again?
Yeah, exactly.
Do you carry that over with your kids?
Oh yeah, 100%. I'm sure. Like, and I know I'm embarrassing, but I think it's just kind of funny at this point.
I mean, you know how now it's like people are like, oh, reuse, recycle. Bro, we've been doing that for ages.
Yeah, exactly.
That's
We're
how we do it,
old.
bro. We don't know anything else. We don't buy
No,
Tupperware.
exactly.
Like right now, you can go with my cupboard and you open it up and it's like ice cream container or like, like a Chinese food container.
Yeah, I know. It's all free Tupperware.
I know you mentioned that your mom was very close to the Chinese community. Was she some sort of a leader or?
Yes, yeah. So um, she was a very big author for her time, and she wrote in every major Chinese newspaper. She had a column weekly.
Wow.
She published over 50 books. She was in lots of magazines, and she traveled all over the world doing keynote speeches, actually. And it is funny because she always said, like, I didn't know there was Chinese people in this many, like all this many countries, but they all showed up. You know, people would drive hours to see her. And then she started the Chinese Women's Association, and she often rallied around immigrant groups, you know, in her community, and built spaces for them to feel seen. I think just hearing her content was very relatable. And I think like part of it too was she just had such an aura about her. You know, when people would tell her stories, they would come up to her after speaking and they would tell her like, oh yeah, I can think about that joke all the time and I laugh about it and I tell my kids. And you know, she makes you feel like, you know, you're like the center of the world, right, in that moment. And she listens to every story, she remembers everything. And she actually passed away in July of last year.
Sorry to hear that.
And that was like when all of this it all came to light. I think that there was a side of my mom I didn't realize, I didn't know. All these authors wrote all these articles about it. So there was like hundreds of articles that were being published in all these newspapers about her.
Wow.
And when I was reading them, I was like, wow, I didn't realize she was, you know, a feminist and that she touched the community so much. Like there were so many stories of I was a, you know, woman budding writer, like nobody knew who I was, but she reached out and said, you know, I want to introduce you to a publisher and I want you to meet these famous people so that you can have connections and you can, you know, grow, you know, your writing and you can find an outlet in it. And there was so many stories like that. And I was just so amazed because I don't think I knew that. I don't think I knew that side of her. So that was really incredible just to watch all of that and realize the impact that she made. It was pretty amazing.
What was mom's name?
Wu Ling Yao. So Ling Yao Wu.
Was she sick, mom?
Yes. Yeah. She was. So it was kind of a fast thing and kind of sudden feeling. But yeah.
Were you accepting when it was happening because he was sick already, or he was still in denial mode?
Yeah, I would say that I think when we first understood what was happening, we were in disbelief. And then she in the end it did feel very sudden, I think. So all of it was very sudden feeling, and it was very difficult.
How are you doing with the grief now?
I think I'm doing a lot better. I think a lot of that had to do with honestly learning more about her. I think was a blessing for me. Like, a lot of folks don't get to learn as deeply about their parents, maybe in that way. And I'm happy to have that she touched so many people that I was able to hear about it. I think that is a big blessing for me. And I think a lot of that actually is the reason why I ended up starting PDX Fresh Start, was because it was right after that. I had been thinking about it, but then when all of that happened, I was like, well, how you spend your time is really important. How we spend our lives is really important, and she cared deeply about my happiness. And I felt like, I should invest in myself to find something happy that I really enjoy, and do that.
Beautiful. I love that. You mentioned that she was a writer, but did she try to push you towards being a writer, or she just like, just be happy, dude?
No, they were really traditional. So I follow the path. I'm an engineer. So both my brother and I followed the path of being an engineer. That's when my dad got a PhD in computer science. So he very much valued education, and I've been really blessed because I've actually really have enjoyed all of the jobs that I've had. So I've been very blessed in that way. Even though it's not, I enjoy artistic pieces, but I also really enjoy being an engineering type person, luckily.
When you were young, what did you want to be?
When I was very young, I wanted to be an ice cream lady. Like, I get to have all the ice cream I want.
I mean, I love the idea, but the problem is the money. That's
Yeah.
the problem.
I don't think you think about that as a kid. You just think about the ice cream.
No, growing up, when I was young, my uncle was or is a architect. I wanted to be an architect, and then I realized I'm not good with math. I'm like, that's not gonna happen.
Uh-huh.
What did you learn from mom that you value the most?
I think her charisma and her valuing people and community. I think I never really thought about it too much, but she allowed people to find like home in a country that wasn't their home. And I feel like that was incredibly important for people. Um, and so I've found that I really enjoy doing that as well. Making people feel like they belong, whether it's, at work or not at work, just in the community. I think all of that has probably been the most fulfilling of the things that I've done, and just tapping into that more.
Is that how you plan to carry on her legacy?
Yeah, I think that's the happy like discovery or happy accident of starting PDX Fresh Start, was actually the community, that the maker community. It's very, nuanced and very different, and we kind of get to, like commiserate with each other about difficulties of being a small business owner. It's not easy. It's not for the faint of heart. um, so that building that has been incredibly rewarding. I think just making friends like that has been, is definitely what I want to, honor her legacy with.
It's beautiful. You mentioned your business. What's the best part of running a business?
I think the community.
Yeah. I love
Yeah,
that.
I don't think anyone really talks about that much. Most people are, I mean, so a lot of people are, after maybe it's money, maybe it's fame, maybe it's something else, maybe it's fulfillment. But I think the community part isn't mentioned nearly as much, but is incredibly, it fills a gap, I think. Yeah.
Growing up, did you have your own community or did you have to create it on?
I think I was pretty lucky because, um, well, when I first was in LA, I was in a not very Asian community growing up. And then eventually I lived in the Bay Area, and that was very different experience. Um, so it was actually really funny. So I had written down a story that was like super embarrassing that I never really think about. But when I was really young, I was like in a predominantly Jewish neighborhood, and for every month they gave out bagels. And I remember like we're all like all the kids were like frantically trying to get these free bagels. And then I remember getting like really freaked out, and I yelled out like in Chinese, like "wo ye yao," which means like I want one too. And then like everyone stopped and just stared at me like, and then I realized like I was different, like I forgot like, oh yeah, like I speak another language that they don't understand. And like in my time of panic, I yelled out in a different language. um, but yeah, I mean I got my bagel. But
Right. It worked, right?
it worked.
Growing up, did you have like Asian friends or were they a mixture of different races?
Yeah, so then luckily when I was in the Bay Area, I grew up around a lot of Asian people. And so that I think I may have taken that for granted, I think, because then I moved to Portland, which is predominantly white. But during growing up, I definitely was very lucky, surrounded by diversity. It was never like a question of, we just all understood each other. And we all understood our own parents and how similar they all were. Um, you know, to like no matter what Asian, right? There was like people from Pakistan, people from India, people from Hong Kong and China and Taiwan and Philippines and it was very and Vietnam. It was a very diverse Asian, but like you kind of just had that grounding understanding of we have immigrant parents, and so that I think I did take for granted a lot, and which was good.
Why was it good?
I think they were just a lot more understanding of we were all just very understanding of each other. We all had very, essentially, I mean, what I would call strict now parents. Like if like, we didn't really go to dances, we didn't do all that like stuff.
Sleepover.
Yeah, sleepovers. We didn't do all the normal American, quote unquote, normal American type things. Grades were incredibly important. We all knew that. Um, like study. Um, yeah, so it was like an unspoken commonality.
Do you
Between
apply those things that you learn from mom and your community to your kids now?
I think parts of it, I'm trying to be mindful of what I want to carry on, and maybe the parts that I don't. Um, it's hard though, because when you're really stressed out, I see my parents come out like, but when I'm in a calm state, I try my best to be mindful of what I'm saying. And definitely, valuing their thoughts and opinions and emotions. I want them to feel, like it's a safe space at home.
You're in a mixed relationship, are you?
Yes.
Yes. So how are you guys finding the balance where the Asian culture and the Western culture, which one are you guys gonna follow?
I think it's a mixture for sure. luckily my partner is very like he's learning Chinese, he very much wants to carry on culture as much as we can. We try to celebrate and cook, the foods for celebrations, and he's very aware of all the cultural nuance. And so, luckily my his parents are also very understanding, and very wanting to be part of traditions. We do they do red envelopes, and like
the
so
best.
Yes, yeah, all the best parts. On the best parts. So yeah, I think it's a good balance. It is difficult, because I always wonder, I know mixed race is really, very normal now, but it's I hope that they're able to find identity in all of it.
Yeah, and that's not our problem anymore. That's their problem.
That's true.
It's one of those things that like one of my kids is like he's half white, like your kids there, and he's acting more Western than Asian, right? Which I don't mind, whatever.
Yeah.
But just to bug him, I'm like, hey, you're only half white. You're not fully white. But again, they will find their identity, you know. And my eldest, who does not speak a word of Tagalog, is now suddenly speaking it.
Wow.
I never push it to them. I never.
Wow.
So over the weekend, we were at my mom's and we're, celebrating and whatever. And he just spoke. I'm like, where is this kid? Cool. And he said it well too,
Yeah.
And then the other day I was in the kitchen and I leaned over him. Like I just leaned behind him and he goes, and he said the word like when leaning. I'm like, how? Like I don't use this word. Like how do you know this word? And he doesn't say it. And like, I just know that. I'm like, dude, I mean, I love that you're learning.
Yeah.
But I think he's using what is that app?
Duolingo.
Yeah, but I'm like, I love that. I never push it on them. Never push it. The culture. I mean, you come into my house, like it's a Filipino house. You'll see, like in the things. But I just love it. Are you teaching your kids? What do you speak? Cantonese, Mandarin? I don't know.
Yeah, I speak Mandarin Chinese. Little bits and pieces, but not over the top. I think when my mom was around, she would try a lot more than I do. But I definitely want them to learn.
Yeah. Well, there's no school, or it's not like Connie being thrown in the back over there.
There's not as many Chinese schools here, unfortunately. So I think we would have to definitely seek it out.
Have you thought of starting one? Because mom was a principal.
That's true. That would be amazing. I mean, I think, yeah. I mean, maybe eventually.
Jelly Cup Collective. Let's talk about this. What inspired you to start this collective?
Yeah. So Jenna Pham and I are the co-founders. And so like in my career, more recently, I focused a lot on diversity, equity, inclusion things, DEI related things, and I've found them to be incredibly rewarding. It's interesting because, COVID and, Black Lives Matter really pushed companies to, focus on DEI, and they never really did before. And so it was a really great time to be in on all of it, to introduce it to companies and to kind of explain the value of it. And so I was definitely, I was one of the founding members at my company for employee resource group for Asian Pacific Islander employees. And during that time, I feel like I kept pulling people in, even if they didn't want to be part of it. And they were like, I don't know if I need this, but then once they were in, they were like, I don't think I've ever felt this seen at work before. I never thought that I could ever cross over between my personal life and work in this way and talk about things that are super uncomfortable at work, that used to be faux pas, right? And talk about it with coworkers is not a big deal. And so a lot of that, when I met Jenna, I actually met her at Legendary Makers Market as well. We ended up being at a pop-up together for the holidays last year. And it came up at the end of the year whether or not we wanted to continue in this retail space. So she and I sat down and we were talking about, what doesn't exist in Oregon is an all Asian artist collective. And why not? And we were like, can we turn this space into that? Could this be that? And we were pretty lucky. We were business partners with a bookstore that was also in the space. So the Always Here bookstore. They are a queer-owned bookstore, and they have books for all ages. So it's really cool. So we share the space with them, and we currently have about 24 artists in the space, all Asian, Pacific Islander, and we're continuing to kind of evolve what that is. But it's been it's been amazing. We get together for potlucks. We'll have porridge night and everyone brings toppings, or we'll do I think Jenna made adobo one time. I did spam musubi, and we just do potlucks and kind of come together and do art together. We built a Chinatown arch. One of the artists, her name is Winona. She owns Little Bug Studio. She went to art school and she's basically an engineer. So she I don't even know the right term, but she drew out a structural drawing of a Chinatown gate, and we basically made it out of cardboard. We had a community event with Legendary, so all the makers came and everyone painted tiles for this Chinatown gate. Then we assembled it into basically a community frame that is the entrance to our retail space.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
It reminds me of, the small communities and they try to build a home or a house for someone or anything,
Yes.
I love that. How did you start the community? Did you know these people already and you just yo, let's build this thing?
Yes. Yeah. So a lot of them we knew through different markets. So we asked them if they were interested in being part of a collective. That's where we met most of them, was through different markets.
Okay. You said collective. Are you guys pulling money together to have money? I don't know how.
Yeah. What does that mean? Yeah. So they buy into be a part of the collective, and then we do consignment for having the retail space. And then, so all of that is what jointly helps pay for the retail space itself. And then we have a Discord where we have different channels, where, some of it's about food, some of it's about different markets coming up, hey, let's all apply for this market. That's actually been something that's been happening a lot, is companies will reach out and they want to do, especially for May, they want to do an API Heritage Month market. And we'll just be well, we have 24 people that can come and vend. And that's amazing for them, because it's a lot less organization on their end to create a market for their employees. And so that's something that we've been doing. Our next one actually is at Portland State University. So we'll all be vending there together. And then we'll be at Daimler Trucking Company. So that's been pretty fun too.
Mm-hmm. What were the initial challenges, if there were?
Mm-hmm. The initial challenges, I think the very first one was money.
I'm pretty sure that's everyone's problem.
Yes. Yeah. So when we got the space, because we transferred the lease over to our name. We didn't really think about we had to pay deposit, which is another extra month's rent. And so all of a sudden it was twice as much as we were paying. That was a huge barrier. And then we didn't really then have the money to make the space better either. So the space we just had to deal with what it was. Fixtures, we just ask, if people can bring their own fixtures. We only had some, so all of that was incredibly hard, and I think we definitely had to start really fast. So, we're not without our problems, right? We are continuing to learn, how to deal with conflict within the group. 24 artists is a lot. And, it's important for all of us to make sure their voices are heard and they feel like they belong in it. So, we've had some rotation of artists based on their own needs. Some folks, don't want to be have their stock in a retail store or whatever. And so, we're continuing to learn what works, what doesn't work, and trying to understand and be more clear about, how we operate together.
When artists get into arguments and whatnot, whatever the reason is, who steps in to be the mediator?
Yeah, I think for the most part, Jenna and I play that part. If it involves us, we want them to feel like they can voice their concerns too. So generally it's us. If it needs to be a larger group, sometimes we'll pull in Always Here too because they share the space too. So as needed, we pull folks in to try to help keep the peace and make sure, things are as we want them to be.
Love it. How do you anticipate Jelly Cup Collective in the future?
Yeah, I think definitely we want to have more of an online presence. So building out the website, maybe eventually having, our retail space online as well. And then our original goal was to, throw markets as well. So like organize markets where people can, convene and group. And then I think just more community events. So if we continue to be in the space that we're at, the community events have been the best part of all of it. So like the one that I mentioned, we were all painting the roof tiles. That was like incredibly fun. We just had one last weekend where Theater Diaspora is making a community weaving. So they were inviting people to weave a couple things into a tapestry, and eventually it would make a large tapestry done by the community, and then it would be on display. So all of that's been super exciting and rewarding. We have like an upcoming celebration. There's a lady that does a free diverse library. So she's going to have her anniversary party there and do free books. And I think the community building is the best part.
Have you ever, or is it a possibility that you can kick out like a member?
It hasn't happened yet, but that is definitely a possibility. I think it's interesting because we're kind of at a crossroads now, I think, where we have to be more clear about what our social rules are with each other. And define that more clearly of what our mission and values are. So if someone's in violation of that we are able to have a very equitable explanation as to why we're, maybe questioning their membership, right? It hasn't happened yet, but it's definitely important. And we definitely need to work on that.
Yeah. Do you guys vote people to positions, or it's just like Jenna and you're the boss and everybody listen?
We haven't voted into position. We're pretty open as a group. So we'll bring issues into the Discord and we'll discuss as a group. And then we make our decisions from there based on group input. So like there was one situation where someone felt like one product shouldn't be in the store. And so that got very heated. And that person actually had opted to leave the collective on their own because they felt like they didn't enjoy the discussion that was had. But I think what's important is that we're all adults, right? So having a healthy discussion is something we're going to have to be able to do to continue in a collective. So if we don't know how to have conflict together and resolve it together, it's going to be difficult.
Mm-hmm. Why is it called Jelly Cup Collective?
Yeah, I think because all of us were talking about how Jelly Cup is a very common thing in all of our childhoods. So we've all eaten Jelly Cups at some point. And we were also joking that they were a choking hazard,
I was just going to say, how many times you almost choke on one of those things?
A lot of times. There's a lot of Jelly Cups in our space where you can eat them all the time. I think I have a lot whenever I'm in the store. Yeah, so that was like, oh, this is like a cool collective memory we all have of eating Jelly Cups as a kid.
That's beautiful. How do you envision Jelly Cup Collective contributing to Portland's cultural landscape?
Hoping to just open doors and uplift the community. Jenna and I often talk about if others were to start collectives, like a lot of the different collectives in town, like we all work together, and we all want to uplift each other. I think the more the better, right? So I definitely think if it's a chance to uplift the community in some way, and force people to want to support local artists, like all the better.
How many are the members now, current?
24.
24. What's the number that you're thinking of, like the next number?
I think in our space, we can probably only accommodate a couple more because of just space constraint. But yeah, I think if we ever do expand, that would also be amazing. We would just have to find the right spot.
Yeah. So you have a certain area where you set up all the stores? Okay.
Yes.
I thought you just hey, we're going to this place over here. Let's go over there.
No, it's a physical store.
Okay.
Yeah.
How effective is that there's a physical store to sell to, I guess, consumers or customers?
I think it's actually been very interesting. I never really understood the value of physical space until we had this store. We were always going market to market, right? But then to have a physical store is to have infrastructure for more. And I think that has been incredible because there's people that, want access to a space and they don't have it. And for us to be able to offer that, and we offer, for community events and things for pretty inexpensively, to just allow people to, organize and to have space. Like I'm working with someone who's interested in doing something for at-risk youth and they don't currently have a space. And so the opportunity to use a space is huge. And I think that just allows us to continue to grow the community that we have. And then we're really lucky with Always Here, there's a whole queer community to support as well. So, yeah, across all BIPOC and queer, communities, if they want to use the space, that's amazing.
Mm-hmm. How can someone join the collective?
So they can reach out to just Jelly Cup Collective on Instagram and just let us know. We currently have a small wait list. We're kind of evaluating some of the folks because we like to have a variety of different types of goods. So, we kind of just want to make sure that everyone has space to, exist, make sales. But yeah.
So are you guys trying to avoid competition between each other?
No, I wouldn't say that like specifically because I think, it's always healthy. Like we have a lot of digital artists in the space and, they just all bring their own style. And so I wouldn't say, like that it's competition. I think everyone's thing is their own thing, right? I think we definitely believe in healthy competition and community over competition. Um, but yeah, I think it's also because we have the 24 that exist already. It's important that we find people that are able to, you know, vibe well, right, with everyone. I think that honestly is more important to maintain the collective health, than the type of art they do or their media.
Yeah. It takes one pain in the ass to ruin everything. You know? Like you
Yeah.
let one in and you're like, why did that we let this guy in? Have you denied people?
No, not yet.
Okay, but right now you're in the process of scheming them, right?
Mm-hmm.
How do you approach that? Because you're denying someone's an opportunity.
Yes. I mean, I think that's why we have a wait list. Just because they're denied this round doesn't mean they're always going to, right? So I think being honest, I very much believe in transparency, like in everything that I do. I always try to make sure they understand, why. So yeah, it will, it's always going to sting a little, right? It's always going to be uncomfortable, but you know, there's only so many slots, only so much space. So it's bound to happen at some point.
What made you so good at dealing in this uncomfortable situation?
I would actually say my job, my normal job. It's actually funny because I was just telling my partner about this. I feel like I often am asked when there's a low performing team to come in and make them high performing. So in those types of situations, there's often a lot of conflict, right? Often a lot of, and a lot of it boils down to, them not feeling heard. And that's why they feel like they aren't performing at their peak, right? So I think it's a lot of balance, right? It's a lot of making sure they feel heard and then addressing their concerns, but then also being realistic with them. If something can't happen, then being transparent that we're all adults. They need to be able to handle the truth. I think giving them that mutual respect is really important. I respect what they think, but they also need to respect me for what I think. And kind of just, it's difficult, but if you care about what you're trying to build at the end, I mean, that's the only way we can march together.
Yeah. Where did you learn the skill? Like even before that, you have to learn it somewhere, not just at work.
Yeah. That's a good question. Because I feel like growing up the way that I did, obviously there was a lot of people pleasing, right? I think most of my childhood was just about people pleasing. And then, at what point did I switch? I think as I grew older, like it's kind of what we talked about earlier, boundaries. Just, at some point, like I'm gonna say what I feel. Maybe it's age. Maybe I just don't care anymore.
Yeah.
But I'm like, I'm just gonna say how I feel, and if you don't like it, okay. We don't have to agree, but we still have to get this done.
Yeah. Yeah. Age is one of the most important thing for people pleasing.
Yes.
It's like because you start thinking like, why am I caring about what people say? I gotta do things. I'm old. Like, my knees are not working anymore properly. I got things to do.
Yes.
But yeah, I mean, obviously we're lucky to have got that knowledge and that wisdom. But obviously some people they still don't have that, right?
Right.
But yeah, do you have a mentor?
Not officially. I think, yeah, I think it's interesting because, I mean, I guess like my parents is probably my closest to a mentor. I think at work, it's often hard, like because as a like BIPOC woman, sometimes there's not always that to look up to, right? And how I approach things may not be how I've seen others approach things. So I feel like I've had to learn on my own in that regard, um, for what works with me, and what I feel comfortable with. But yeah, I think my parents, like in terms of like, definitely my dad, like I am definitely a thinker, right? So, or maybe an overthinker. But he's very, strategic. He's very much a thinker, and I am too. I'm not great at, reacting immediately, but when I come to, think through all the things, I'm able to react. So yeah, I'm very much my parents' kid, I guess.
Yeah, engineer,
Yes, exactly.
Everything has to be planned.
Exactly.
I'm more of like, shoot first, ask question later. I'm getting better, but yeah, it's more of like that, like just. I think we're there. This has been such a fun conversation. I really enjoyed it. But before we close out, I have one last question for you, if you don't mind.
Mhm.
What advice do you have for aspiring entrepreneurs or artists aiming to start their own collective or venture?
Just do it. Just go for it. It's not as steep of a curve as you think. And people will come out of the woodwork and be extremely supportive. You're going to find fans, and supporters as you go. And, it will feel alone at times, but it also won't, because you'll know that there's other people around you, that want you to win. I think that's definitely something I learned, is just go for it, because it's not worth waiting around wondering what if, because what if you don't? So just do it.
Beautiful. Again, Connie, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I really do appreciate it.
Yes, thank you for having me so much.
Have a good night.
You too.
Bye.
Bye.
Again, Connie, thank you for coming on the podcast. I really do appreciate it. Thank you, listeners, for listening. This is N. Deliosa for An Immigrant's Life. I'll see you guys later.